Thursday, everybody, and welcome into the Gramlich and Mac Lane podcast. Again, a happy 2023 to all who celebrate. I think that's pretty much everyone, as we are in a new year, and you can't deny that. It is 2023. And Mac,
yeah. Are there people out there?
Are there people who say, forget the new year?
Recognize what year it is. Like, they just make it up as they go.
It's actually January 4th, or whatever day today is, 2022 again. No way. It's 2023, y'all. We are into our Jordan year as a society. Are you ready for that?
For those who participate.
Well, I feel like I have to say that now with every holiday, right?
No, you do not. Don't
to
conform.
all who celebrate.
You don't have to conform to that. You don't have to do it.
To all who celebrate. We are going, this is going to sound bad, but we're going to talk about the losers today. We have 4 ACC bowl games in which the ACC team lost. However, I think there is a lot, arguably more to be discussed from the losers than the winners. Yeah. We always say, Mac, you learn more from a loss than you do from a win.
You should.
You buy into that?
No, you absolutely should. And I think, specifically looking at some of these young players, some of these quarterbacks, who did lose, just going back and looking at that tape and, is it a couple of plays here and there that, I could have changed, that I could do differently? How can I figure that out? I think that's important, to not learn from, these type of things, to not learn from, really a snapshot of the future for a lot of these teams, I think would ultimately be a loss there. But, to figure that out, to find out how can we address it, how can we get better, what do we need to do as a team? And the interesting thing, we didn't touch on this on Tuesday's episode, but what's interesting about this, KG, is going into the offseason, with a loss sucks. Like there's not a lot of people that win their last game ever or their last game before something starts, just because it's, if you do, you're probably not very good and you ended, a game, whatever. And if you do, you do win in the postseason, it's probably like jubilation. Like it's this crazy thing. So it's really tough to do. But man, it's not a fun feeling. And it's like this depressing cloud that just kind of hangs over you. And it's like, do I watch the tape? Do I not watch the tape? You better watch the tape. And then, like, you go to winter workouts, and you're up at 5 a.m. It's dark, it's cold, it's miserable, and you try to figure it out. So to flush that as quickly as you can is, just one of those things where you got to go. Or, on the other side, you use it as fire, and you use it as, I never want to feel this again. Let's get this going. Let's get this figured out.
But it does linger because you have 8 months, basically, where you just have to sit there with that loss. And your fan base has to sit there with it. And I know for a lot of these fan bases, for Clemson, for NC State, for Syracuse, and for North Carolina, you have to sit with it and you don't feel good about it. And I think we'll start with Clemson. But first, we need to tell you about our new sponsor. New year, new sponsor here on the pod.
Come on, KG. We have teamed up with Rock'em Socks. I'm super excited about this sponsorship, about this partnership with these guys, the world's largest sock store. And what do I mean by that? You can shop over 10,000 plus exclusive. You know what exclusive means? You can only find it in one place. Sock designs, including your favorite college teams. They have every ACC team, a bunch of different fun designs. There were Christmas Clemson socks that I received in the mail. There they are. They look beautiful.
These are actually hoops socks?
Oh, hoops, excuse me. You're a little grainy. Sometimes technology, it helps us. Sometimes it doesn't.
Don't tell
me. It will look very
that.
clear. It will look very clear on YouTube. You guys will see it better than I could. And I love the fact, KG, we're going to be doing a ton of giveaways with this new partnership. So any team that you like, any just sock, just go over to rockemsocks.com. They have anything you can think of. I'm a big Marvel fan. So they have all kinds of different things for all those movies, all those superheroes. Just different entertainment things, the college football playoff. If you want to rep your team, national championship, Georgia or TCU, they've got them. And there you go. KG's rocking the gold ones, as you can see right here front and center. So love these guys. Really excited about this partnership and some fun things we're going to be doing in the future.
Go over to rockemsocks.com and you can get 20% off with our code GML20 at checkout. That's GML20 at checkout for 20% off your first purchase at Rock'em Socks. Find your new lucky pair of socks for game day and get your feet in on the fun. One of our favorite things about this, too, Mac, is they have every ACC school.
Yes.
They have basically every university But especially as an ACC podcast, we wanted to make sure they have every ACC school.
That's
and
right.
They do. They even have some Wolfpack guys on the staff. So there's definitely a lot of Wolfpack NC State options for you.
That's right. You know, KG, as you were saying our discount code there, I was trying to think of something catchy outside of just our last names, Gramlich and McLean. McLean being 2 words, so it gets 2 initials there. And you know what I thought of, which is super sad? Good morning, losers, because that's what this episode is about. If you're tuning in right now, your team lost, and we're going to talk about it. So let's just get started. GML, everybody.
Dang.
GML.
GML. Good morning, losers. Okay. Let's start at the Capital One Orange Bowl. Number 6, Tennessee defeats number 7, Clemson, 31-14. This game, if you're a Tennessee fan, jubilation, right? This is your biggest win in many, many years. Well, the Bama win, probably. But you're back in the Orange Bowl. Great. We're going to look at this from a Clemson perspective because we're an ACC podcast. Let's just start overall thoughts, Mac. Overall thoughts on this game. You were there in Miami. You felt the vibe. You saw the stands. You saw the body language. Just overall thoughts from this game.
I'm glad you mentioned the stands because I wasn't even going to think about that, but I just did. Tennessee not only whipped you on the field and in the scoreboard, but they dominated the fans. I mean, it was like 70-30. It was like 70-30.
Let's be realistic. Tennessee hasn't been to a New Year's Six Bowl in 20 years, and Clemson has gone to playoffs year in and year out, et cetera. I mean, I think that's human nature a little bit.
Sure. But it stinks. It stinks.
It did sound like there were a lot of Tennessee fans there.
Yeah, a little embarrassing for my alma mater. But hey, whatever. I understand. Wasn't a lot of people at the ACC championship either. So I don't know when the line gets drawn of when you go to games and when you don't go to games. I just know that I would always be there to support. So anyway, here we go. Looking at this game, super interesting, KG, because I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Because to me, this game very similar, ironically enough, to the Syracuse game. We'll talk about that here in a second, where Team A dominates like the box score, and Syracuse a little more lopsided than Clemson, Tennessee, at least till the end. Tennessee really turned it on in the fourth quarter, moving the football and things of that nature, but Clemson just did what they wanted. I mean, running the football, throwing the football. It was impressive to see up until a point. Like, they got to the 30-yard line and just forgot how to play football, forgot how to call plays, forgot how to execute at the high level, and man, it just really stalled out. So that was interesting. We rarely criticize people to a degree of, I don't want to say blame, but we try to be very positive. On this show, I try to be very positive on TV because at the end of the day, I understand that it's kids and, whatever. But when it comes to coaching,
we understand the pressure. We've
been there. We've been there.
Every student athlete who goes out there is giving everything they have most of the time.
Right. No question. But I do think that coaches are fair game because they're making millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's their job. And I did not like the game plan that Clemson had going in at all. And I thought that the play calling was bad. I thought that you put the ball in a true freshman's hand in his first start ever 74 times.
It's crazy.
That is insane. Throwing it 54 times, 20 rushes for Cade Klubnik. It's not fair, to be honest. It's not fair that
Did Trevor Lawrence ever throw the ball 54 times?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And he's one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in Clemson history. And so it was baffling to me. Yeah. All by the while, you have a guy in Will Shipley who's going crazy. You have a guy in Phil Maffa who every time he gets the rock is running 8-9 yards. And then I hear after the game, well, hindsight, not really. Like, everyone knows this is working when you do it. And so to me, it's a very interesting situation where Clemson is right now because a lot of the criticism, and rightfully so, was put on the quarterback position. Well, now that you have a guy that we saw be very successful and we think will be very successful, now there's like this weird revert backwards to can't do anything. It can't get going. And I think it's even more telling the green zone, not even red zone, the green zone struggles of we get to X spot on the field and nothing can be done. Mm-hmm. We get to, I keep saying we, I'm sorry, but it is we right now. We get to 3rd and 8 and the only solution is throw a fade. Like, can you run a 12-yard route? Can you run something in the middle of the field where guys can catch it and run? Like, where's the creativity? Where's the options in this thing? And at the end of the day, you have to give Tennessee a ton of credit. Like, their defense played out of their mind. Yeah. They were super physical. They were very fast, got to the ball, hitting guys. I mean, they played great. And offensively, I mean, we saw Joe Milton. I've never seen him play like that. I mean, it was his best game by far. Accuracy, touch, strength,
deep
all
ball.
that stuff. Deep ball was immaculate. So offensively, that's kind of my vibes. Offensive line really struggled to handle some of the games and things of that nature, which then caused Cade to make some freshman decisions and maybe not trust those guys. And instead of just stepping up in the pocket, which you would see a veteran guy do, he's doing the high school stuff where he's trying to be faster than everybody, which is just not the case by any stretch, and just putting them in bad situations. So from that perspective, KG, and offensively, it was tough to watch because you're just man, you're moving the ball, you're doing this, okay, this is the chance, and then boom, you stall out and miss field goals, which was, I mean, that in itself was just
missed field goals. A few of those, tough field goals to ask beat.
Yeah, tough situations there, like punt the ball, like play field position. That's a good game to play. It's a good game to play.
And field position, maybe you force a turnover, etc. Clemson got into Tennessee territory on 9 of their first 10 possessions and scored 6 points.
It's crazy.
You're not going to beat anybody doing that. That's for sure. It reminded me a little bit about how North Carolina could get in the red zone against Clemson in the ACC title, but couldn't score.
Yeah.
I think my main takeaway, and maybe from this whole season for Clemson, I actually remember Cade Klubnik saying this on our podcast. The name of the game is first downs. Somewhat. Clemson had 34 first downs, and Tennessee had 20, and that didn't do much for you. I think watching the playoff, watching these other bowl games, watching Clemson, Tennessee, more so than ever, the name of the game in college football is explosive plays.
Yeah.
And Clemson has not been able to be explosive consistently this season. The biggest telling factor to me, when you look at the stat sheet, the biggest thing for me was Clemson 5.7 yards per pass and Tennessee 9 yards per pass. That's the difference. Tennessee had explosive plays. They were connecting on the deep ball. They were putting faith in Joe Milton and their receivers to make plays. And some of those explosive plays were the nail in the coffin. Clemson just could not be explosive enough. And that, to me, overall, if we're talking about DJ, we're talking about Cade, we're talking about play calling, we're talking about offensive line, we're talking about receivers, whatever. I think the biggest issue, overarching issue for Clemson this season, was they were not able to be explosive enough.
Yeah. And I think it's super interesting. You bring up the fact of the yards per pass. And that's such a weird stat to me, the way that we do it, because to me, it should be yards per completion. Like if I'm throwing a pass and it's a drop or a miss, like why am I being penalized for that? Cade threw it 54 times, but he only, got credit for the 320 yards, which, comes out to 11 yards per completion. Tennessee's was 14. So still that disparage of there's some bombs being had there by Tennessee and in the run game, just no explosive runs. I think the longest run was 13 yards. But consistent.
Explosiveness goes to the run game too, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to look at that, KG, I think you're absolutely right. You look at these team stats, it used to be back in the day, time of possession and first downs, you win the game. But 100% now, it's all about explosion. It's all about points. It's all about how can I move the football as fast as I can. I don't care how long. Because Clemson dominated time of possession, 36 minutes to 20 minutes, 23 minutes. And it didn't matter. Tennessee was able to score at will. Was impressive to see, what they're able to do and how they were able to do it with the limited resources. Defensively, I thought Clemson was really limited by not having Simpson or Murphy, just as a pass rush, type of guy. I mean, Brian Brzee had to play defensive end, which he did a great job, but obviously not his position. He's not nearly as twitchy as Murphy or Simpson there. Thought that Clemson did mix it up a lot, with looks that they were showing, with how they were showing different things. But ultimately just the lack of experience and I guess overall talent, I don't know how you want to say it, at the defensive back position, just came to bite Clemson again. I mean, the fact that, Tennessee, I think, had 10 first half or maybe even up to the third quarter possessions, and 7 were punts, 3 were touchdowns. Like, it was just, those points, absolutely killed Clemson. They weren't able to get it done.
The other 2 plays that really stood out, I think, are the fake field goal, where you're putting the ball in a walk-on's hands in a fake field goal. I'm not even going to point out that he's the coach's son. I'm not sure that really matters. I think it's more that he's a walk-on. and he's not a Hunter Renfrow walk-on. He's not really featured in any other way. And then Cade at the end of the half, the clock management, that was a real freshman moment. I think Cade definitely had some freshman moments. And your point, Mac, the biggest issue for him is staying in the pocket and stepping up in the pocket. It was quite the contrast to watch Alabama the next day, and you watch Bryce Young, and this man does not get rattled, ever.
No.
He steps up into the pocket, and he makes plays, and it's just – and he's about the same size as Cade. Cade's actually bigger, but he's able to stick in there. And is that something that Cade can just learn and get better at?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a total experience thing, because I'm sure if we went back and watched Bryce, which I don't even remember if he played actually his first year.
He didn't.
At all.
He didn't play much at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he did the same thing in practice. Like, you think you're still faster, better than everybody, and you find out quickly that you're not. And, it's just it's a total learning thing. So that's why I'm not, as bullish, and maybe it's the homerism, whatever you want to call it, but Clemson will be fine. Like, Cade is unbelievable and going to be really, really good once he gets another, off season of training and understanding, and, as being the guy as well. Like, that's important. That's a very unique difference that, this off season will be for him. But it's going to be interesting to see, just what Clemson does. Are there any changes that are made? Is there any additions personnel wise? I think it would be relatively hard to stay stagnant, but that's what we've seen from them these last couple of years. So we'll see if any changes are made, that aren't forced by other people with either leaving. Well, I guess that's the only way people have left. There haven't been too many additions.
Right. And we'll see who comes back players-wise. I think that's going to be really interesting.
Yes.
Especially on the defense. We will see. And you still bring back a guy like Will Shipley, who has to be utilized more, I think. He was great every time he touched the ball.
Especially these last two games. Like, with Cade as the guy, so puzzling.
Yeah.
So, and especially, I mean, he's a game breaker. There's no question. But the things that he can do for you, there's got to be a touch count at the end of the day. Like, if I look down and I see, oh my goodness, this guy only has touched the ball 3 times in the first half, that is a red flag. Like, I did not do my job as said coach to get that done.
Right. And I think, too, when you look at preseason ACC Player of the Year, we'll look at Travis and May. Those are going to be the real guys in the discussion. But I think Will Shipley should be in the discussion. Yeah. And perhaps that comes down to if people think he's going to get the ball enough. But we will see. So anything else on this Clemson-Tennessee game, Mac? Again, plenty to look forward to. It was obviously a rough showing in many respects. You moved the ball. You got in Tennessee territory. You couldn't score. Give credit to Tennessee and Joe Milton and those wide receivers making plays. But anything else on this?
I think just seeing how Clemson responds. I mean, it's a very unique situation. Losing a game of that caliber, and just how does Clemson get better from it? Is this a launch pad, or a defining turning moment, for the program? That's what I think is going to be really interesting to see.
It almost could be a positive, because last year you heard a lot of rhetoric in the offseason from Dabo Swinney saying, so proud of the bowl win. We were able to find a way to win, blah, blah, blah. This year, not the case. So we will see if that changes some things. Let's talk about the Duke's Mayo Bowl. Shout out to our December sponsor, Duke's Mayo. We appreciate them, and they do such a great job hyping up their bowl game. I felt bad for them in that the teams didn't really show up and help with the hype. Maryland beats number 23 NC State 16-12. This game was pretty ugly, Mac, in all respects.
That's right.
It was just kind of hideous. And MJ Morris didn't play. That was so interesting to us, because Dave Doran said on our podcast, and he said to other people, that MJ Morris was healthy and ready to go. And then you see Ben Finley, and frankly, you kind of see why Ben Finley was 4th string for the season, because he struggled. Yeah, no,
I agree. It was very I guess underwhelming, just to see the offensive game plan, from NC State to have, just a month of, preparation and getting ready and opportunity to score 0 touchdowns is rough. I mean, to stall out, in the red zone, which is a lot what Clemson did too in the green zone, not be able to run the ball at all. I mean, 27 rushing yards.
That was something rough.
That you and I probably should have pointed out earlier. I mean, the fact that those guys haven't scored a rushing touchdown by a running back since the UConn game is crazy. Like, It's a big time problem. You've mentioned
Wow.
it time and time again about how bad the NC State rushing attack has been, but
Mm-hmm.
that was something that was on full display again. And then, just, coach coming on and, saying that both guys were competing, both guys were fully healthy, and then we don't see Morris at all. And, Finley just doesn't look good. I mean, doesn't have a good day, can't really get anything going, throwing balls in the dirt, sailing balls, guys drop them. It was just, there was no continuity, at all. And, I thought the defense did enough to play in the game and win the game and, get these guys going. But ultimately, Maryland just had a little bit too much firepower.
The defense did what they needed to do to hold Maryland to 16 points, a team that had scored a lot. We talked about it. There were 2 Big Ten games. I think it was Ohio State, Penn State, where they didn't really score. Mm-hmm. But then every other game, they were scoring in the 30s.
Right.
And you hold Maryland to 16 points. That should be enough.
Right.
But it wasn't. Now, if NC State, and this is a big if they have Devin Leary, well,
Sure.
Look, the whole season is different.
Right.
So I think that's the overall vibe with this NC State season is going to be the what if. There were such high expectations. A lot of people picking them to win the Atlantic. Devin Leary gets hurt. You do win 4 games with 4 different starting quarterbacks. That's very impressive. You finish with 8 wins. It's still, I think, 8 wins in a normal year for NC State football is very good.
Right.
But because of the expectations coming into the season, overall, pretty disappointing year. And I think just summed up in this disappointing bowl game.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And at the end of the day, we are not the coaching staff. We're not these players where you can, celebrate, what they're able to do with adversity and all the injuries and finding ways to win and get to 8 wins and, get to a bowl game, as important as that is. We just think about the expectation. We just think about what was supposed to happen, what could have happened, what should have happened, but you just weren't able to. And then some of that injury, some of that other factors. And so, I think it is a bit disappointing, for us as the media to what we expected from NC State. When I look defensively, I mean, really just a massive day for those kind of big 4, from the NC State defense there with Thomas, Moore, Wilson, and Engel. Drake Thomas had a massive day, kind of his last day. He announced he's going to the NFL. 4 tackles for loss, a sack, 11 tackles on the day. I mean, he was all over the place. Played like a man possessed, and it's been really fun to cover him, these last 3 years in this league. And some good news for NC State. Peyton Wilson coming back, I think is massive. If he can stay healthy, what will that look like, for the Wolfpack? And you thought you were losing all 4 of those guys. To get one back is pretty instrumental. And a guy that leadership-wise, production-wise, he'll be on full display for this defense next season.
He will. And we will get into all things NC State in our review episodes and talk about the Wolfpack going into next year. But I do think it makes it a little harder when MJ Morris didn't play to evaluate. Now, maybe they were just saying, we want to keep him healthy.
Right.
We don't want to risk anything in this bowl game. I don't know. It's a hard situation to read there, Mac.
I think that has to be the case, which in that I have no quarrel with. I mean, I think it would have been silly, to play outside of wanting to get that 9 wins. Why risk, ruining the future if he's still banged up at all? So I think that was a smart decision to let him rest. But confusing to say the least when you're told he's healthy, he's going to play all
Well,
this.
he's trying to throw off Maryland, I guess.
That's right.
Coach,
That's right.
Coach Doran was thinking. Okay. By the way, I want to add that Mike Loxley wearing the big hat was
Cheating. Absolutely cheating.
I would say genius.
No.
Very smart. Very smart.
They should have gave him $5,000 instead of 10. That was cheating.
I thought it was genius. I would have done the same thing.
Unbelievable.
I would have done the same thing. Okay, how about the Holiday Bowl? Number 15, Oregon beats North Carolina 28-27. I was very impressed with North Carolina in this game. And they had every chance to win it. This could have been a win, which would have said a lot, to beat Oregon, who is Pac-12's technically 3rd best team if you look at who played in the Pac-12 championship. But I thought Drake May stepped up to the challenge. I thought this was big for a young UNC team to bounce back after the NC State disappointment, to prep for this game, to go all the way out to California, and to play really well and put out a good showing on national TV. I know they finish terribly. You start 9-1 and you finish 9-5. That is depressing. But I think of all the losers, UNC probably has the most to build on going into next year.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you have a guy like that and Drake coming back who just played exceptional. I mean, the concepts, the throwing motions, the just crazy arm movements that we see from him is freaky. And this was a great game to remind you of that and his ability and, not having Josh Downs in this game. I think we really, just saw again what he's going to be and who he's going to be, moving forward. I think not having Antoine Green, really showed again. So, these young cats who can step up, who's coming back, does, UNC, they already went and got, Georgia Tech's best wide receiver who came on and was really impressive at the end of the season. So that's going to kind of be a nice piece for them. But just look at what the future, is going to hold. I think the biggest thing, for me is getting Petaway and Hampton to the level that I thought they were going to be at much quicker for whatever reason. If it's, getting the offense, if it's understanding pass blocking, if it's schematically, like the talent is undeniable. Injury, if they just, needed to get healthy, those two have to be like the key backs in the backfield. And, Drake's as good and as threatening as he is as a runner, like let's let that kind of be a surprise. Let's let that be, maybe 5 to 6 times a game, not double digits, be our leading rusher. I think at the end of the day, if North Carolina can get to that moment, look out. They could be really dangerous. And of course, defense has all kinds of, things they need to worry about and figure out how to get back together. But, just to see how UNC fought in this game, to see how they had every opportunity to win it, it was impressive to see. And at the end of the game, they're going up 6 points. Coach Rick, freaks out about it all the time because that's the worst number to be.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Extra point wins it there. Great fight, 9 wins to end the season the way they did with, 5 straight losses is of course tough, but a lot of excitement, I think, from the offensive side of the ball for next year for UNC.
I agree that the run game needs to be addressed in the offseason, the running back run game, because you can't ask Drake May to do all of that with his legs. And it's easier to prepare for. And it feels like they're just going to, this game was a great display of reloading at wide receiver. Again, you don't just replace Josh Downs, but reloading, that's going to happen. I think the run game, and then just the faith, Mac, that Gene Chizik can figure out this defense and make it a little better. And I did find it interesting that a lot of the 5-star guys were transferring, and maybe that helps. Maybe it's addition by subtraction because perhaps those guys just weren't bought in. I don't know. Yeah. I don't think you really like losing Tony Grimes or maybe some of the D-line guys. Maybe that will help. I just feel like Gene Chizik has to make this defense better in the offseason.
No, there's no question about it. And whether that's going to get guys or building with what you have, that's a real cause of concern. It's a big reason of why, you lost some of the games you did. And, I think just to get marginally better will be, massive for this team.
Okay, our final loser, Syracuse. The Pinstripe Bowl. Minnesota beat Syracuse 28-20. Syracuse finishes the year 7-6. Probably if you come into the season and they tell you, okay, you're going to go to a bowl game, finish 7-6, you think that's fine. Yeah. It was a weird year, starting 6-0, and then all the different things. This game, I think, was just fitting for Syracuse's weird year because this game was so weird. Yeah. And Minnesota had that big pick 6. It seems like Syracuse just kept shooting themselves in the foot. And your point, Mac, with the box score, when you look at this and you just look at the box score, you look at the first downs, you look at the yardage, you think Syracuse wins this game, but they just kept finding silly ways to make Minnesota feel better and just continue to keep a good lead in this game.
Right. I mean, listen, if I tell you Syracuse has 27 first downs to Minnesota 14, 477 total yards to Minnesota's 200 yards. And this is the biggest one, holding Minnesota to 77 rush yards. I think Syracuse wins by 30. I mean, I think they absolutely, destroy these guys, and that just wasn't the case. And couldn't get out of their own way, lose both their coordinators, have new guys coming in on the defensive side. Offensively, you feel better because, Beck's been there and been with an eye for so long, so there's that familiarity. Garrett Schrader, I mean, he balled out, threw the ball 50 times for 330 yards. Running attack was solid. I mean, they rushed for, nearly
I like
100.
LaQuint Allen.
Yeah, he looked great. He looked really great. I mean, the versatility as well in the passing game. I mean, he had 26 touches. I mean, that sounds like the next Sean Tucker in regards to how they're going to want to operate with him. So I think there's some excitement there. You're losing a lot defensively. with some really key pieces, especially at corner and linebacker, that have been this young core for so long that now those guys are going to move on. But, ultimately the fight that you saw in this game, in a game that I thought Minnesota was going to run at will, and you shut it down with, tackles for loss and holding guys to very limited plays. It was impressive to see, this from Syracuse, and hopefully can build on. You hit the nail on the head with starting 6-0, ranked in the country, and then losing, the next 5, sneaking in a win, and then losing, the 6th one there. So kind of an abrupt ending, but, surely some excitement for Cuse fans, and with Schrader coming back, and, just a glimpse of this offense and what it can be moving forward.
Honestly, one of the weirdest seasons I think I've ever seen for Syracuse. But I do think you have stuff you can build on, and Garrett Schrader coming back. So I am intrigued to see what Syracuse does next year, and if they can reload on defense. And with LaQuint Allen and Gadsden coming back too, things could be interesting up in central New York. Yeah,
that's right. It'll be fascinating to see it. And, even in the play calling, maybe the lack of pressure to have to get it to Sean Tucker.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to see. Are they a little bit more free in their play calling ability, maybe a little bit more organic in it. But that's it from the losers, guys. That was a little depressing to have to run through all that again. GML, good morning, losers. But big shout out, Rock'em Socks. Go check them out. Rock'em.com. You can find any sock you can ever imagine on that website. We're excited to do some fun things with them in the future. And we're moving forward. We kind of put this season from a bowl perspective to bed. We're going to review each and every team moving forward. Cannot wait. We're going to have all kinds of radio personalities join us, some figureheads, if you will, of the program. Some guys that I know you guys, from each fan perspective, will enjoy and really like. So that'll be coming up next week. But that's it from us. Another great episode of Graham Look at Mac Lane. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Go right now, subscribe this, mash this subscribe button. I'm stumbling on my words here, KJ.
Click it.
If you're watching us on
Click
YouTube.
It or ticket.
That's right. If you're listening, appreciate you guys to rate, review, subscribe over there on Apple Podcasts. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time, we'll see y'all.